I don't know if a lot of people have taken the time to dig into their childhood about what made them an empath, what made you sensitive to people's emotions and the world around you and your energy. Well, a lot of times it's a trauma response, right? It's a trauma response because you grew up in an environment most of the time that made you feel unsafe. And so you had to become particularly aware of the emotions and the energies around your caregivers, right? As to avoid being abused, or, if you didn't have consistency, if sometimes, your caregivers were angry at you, then happy, you, then angry, and then, you just didn't know. So you had to become hyper fixated on their emotions so you could best read the situation, read the room, right? Now, this is a trauma response. It has a lot of great qualities to it, right? It allows you to really read people. It allows you to connect with people, and allows you to have this intuition about like what someone needs. But at the end of the day, being an empath is a childhood wound trauma response. Right? So I grew up like this, obviously, right? Had a great mom, but my father was just not around and just was very inconsistent and, just very up and down, right? And then stepfather was the same way. And it's no fault to my mother, she was great, and she's the number one, you know what I mean? She's amazing. Now, ironically enough, I used to see see being an empath as this like really high quality trait, and it is, right? But then I'd kind of realized something a little while ago, that when I had gotten to a certain point in my healing, I had stopped becoming so hyper fixated on people's emotions and their feelings. And I remember sitting there thinking like, man, I was like, why did that happen? Introspection, right? Like, why did that happen? I don't know, I feel more grounded and more in control of myself, and just honestly like extreme, okay, not extreme, but just like inner peace for the most part, right? Um, I'd gotten to the point where my childhood wounds and a lot of the things that my trigger responses and my subconscious behaviors weren't really there anymore, weren't bothering me. But with that, when I began to let that go, that's when I stopped becoming so hyper fixated on people's emotions and being extra sensitive to people. Now, ironically enough, it's still kind of there, right? But it's not something that I feel is as strong as it was 5 or 6 years ago. Um, and then I had kind of put two and two together and realized, well, this is because of a trauma response. Like, I didn't really go online to find this or anything. It's just something that I like internally felt. And it was kind of recently in my life, actually, too. It was like right after the final relationship that I had with a toxic person and a narcissist. And I really feel like that was like the final straw for me, where it was like, if this is, and I felt it intuitively, like this isn't going to happen again. I'm never going to be with a person like this again. I think I finished the course, the course of life, right? On that aspect of things, right? There's always more to do and more to learn and all of that stuff, but just be aware that you as an empath and a highly sensitive person, that's a great thing to have, and it's a great place to be, and be there. Don't judge yourself for being like that. It's a great thing to have. If anything, it's your intuition, your emotions, and your mind keeping you safe. It's what it is. It's your nervous system activating to keep you safe, which is really cool. Like, the way that the body adapts is unlike anything I've ever seen before. You know, um, I've had an injury, like I had an injury, like a chronic injury in my shoulder. And for a long time, because I was an athlete for a long time, and had always been using it, and I just kind of got hurt one day. And it's funny, over the years I had been kind of monitoring my shoulder, and I had noticed when I started doing physical therapy exercises, like really difficult ones years later. I was always doing physical therapy, but like I was doing really tough exercises now to like really strengthen the shoulder. And I had noticed the side of my body, my shoulder was injured, was way stronger than the other side. my point is, like, the body compensates for things. The mind, your nervous system, your emotions, it compensates for things to keep you safe and protect you. It's really cool if you think about it, right? And we have a lot of times, these negative relationships with our bodies and our minds and our emotions. And it was once I realized that with my shoulders and my, highly sensitive emotional antennas, when I realized, wow, like, I'm really grateful for my body for going out of its way to adapt and compensate for me, you know. So don't have a negative perception about your mind, your body, or your health. I mean, I know we all have been, maybe some of us have been dealt some rough cards in life, but it's pretty cool if you think about it. But being an empath and a highly sensitive person is a trauma response. It's something to be aware about, right? If you really stop and wonder, and I think the first step to healing that is to just really become aware of why you're like that. Like, where did that come from? It's different for everybody, right? I mean, no one's dealt a perfect hand in life, especially with their caregivers and how they grew up and everything. So it's just something to be aware of. You know, truth be told, there's a part of me that kind of wishes that, I'm happy that I had, like, gotten to a point where I'd, like, healed this trauma, right? Because it's given me for the most part, a sense of inner peace in life. It just feels calm, There's about 4 or 5, there's about a 4 or 5 year period where it was just like one single dark night of the soul that lasted like 4 or 5 years. And when I got done with that, that's when I really started to feel that peace, that inner stability. But my, I guess, empathic abilities had dissipated a little bit, or I had to make more of a conscious effort to try. But by then, I feel like what replaced that was just so much more better. Very little to no anxiety, childhood wounds that attracted me, toxic and negative people were gone. Subsequently, the relationships that I had after that were, very healthy. And I genuinely felt authentic love and connection with these people. And it wasn't centered around a trauma bond or any type of insecurity or fear. The communication that you have with someone like that, the high-level conversation, the connection, the emotional intelligence of both of you, each of you could carry a relationship on your own. Now you guys are both there. It's really quite incredible. So it was worth the trade for me. And plus, I think it really helped me develop my own orbit. You really develop your own orbit then when you stop hyperfixating on the emotions and other people around you. It's like you use them as an anchor, right? You hyperfixate into this person or, this other person, right? And you're constantly reading their emotions and, like, reading their energy and reading their vibe, which is a good thing to do. It's always a good thing to do that, but they start to become your emotional anchor. Like, you're only happy when they're happy. If they're mad or if they're upset or if there's something wrong with them, then you feel that and there's something wrong with you. And then you feel like you have to go out of your way to help them or to change that. And then that just really erodes your self-esteem. It really gets in the way of your inner peace. My point is, like, when you start to have your own orbit, right? You get more in touch with your own emotions and your own self and your own mind and your own, everything, right? Your own body even. That's when I feel like your frequency and your vibration really rises. And then when you develop your own orbit, ironically enough, that's when people start coming to you. That's what I think I've really felt like that's what attracts people to you. You don't get attracted to people anymore. They become attracted to you. Now you're always going to be attracted to people. Just don't get hung up on my words here, but it's really quite interesting how that play really developed. Now this took me a good decade and a half of the spiritual practice to do. I mean, this wasn't something that I, watched a video or did a little introspection here and there, and it was over. I mean, this was something I was committed to for about 15 years. really, really serious daily introspection, daily self-inquiry, checking myself, becoming, and that's, really checking my ego and, really asking myself, like, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Like, why am I attracting this relationship? Why is this happening to me? And all this stuff, and just taking ownership of all of that, you know, um, it's, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I finally got to that place of just intense inner balance and inner stability. And that's something that I just really don't feel like I would want to trade for anything at this point. Because I feel like I've just spent so much of my life hyper fixating on other people, being caught in other people's orbits, and that's really tumultuous and it's kind of crappy, to be honest with you. Um, Feeling like you always have to cater to another person and being just so triggered all the time emotionally because of childhood trauma responses, you know. When I got past, or I mean, I don't feel like you're ever done. You're never done, right? But when I got to I guess this level that I'm at right now, I guess until the pendulum swings back the other way and something else happens when life prescribes me the next lesson. But at this point, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Um, but it's a homage to do I'm really proud, not proud, but it's grateful. I'm really grateful and humbled that this had happened. Um, and it's worth it. It's worth the trade. Promise you. All right.